Well, hello everybody. This is going to be a review of the Knipex 200mm VDE cable shears. I've been sent these shears to test out and trial, so thanks to Harry at Tool Talk for sending them out to me. Now, as it happens, I lost a set of cable cutters of my own before Christmas, and I've been using a junior hacksaw or even a set of tin snips for a while, but they're definitely not the best way to deal with thicker electric cables. And so in January I'd actually bought a set of Weeha power cutters for myself, and when I mentioned that to Harry, he asked if I could just compare the two different tools, although they're not exactly like for like. Now, the Weeha power cutters, they're not just meant to be cable cutters. They're more of a very strong diagonal cutter or side cutter, and they have a push button feature which adjusts the pivot point. So here we've got standard side cutters, and pushing this little button changes it. It changes the pivot point of the handle, so you can get a much stronger cut, or you have to use a lot less effort, a lot less strain on your wrist for cutting. And I found it's quite good for a two-stage cut. Now, according to Weeha, these work as standard diagonal cutters, as you see there. They can also be used, they say, for small bolt cutters. They can be used for cutting chain. They can be used for a bit of heavy duty cutting, and Weeha say they're ideal for wires and cables. So with the press of this button, you can cut through extremely hard materials. Weeha say screws, nails, bolts, chains, and then switch between the two strengths with one hand. It can be a bit fiddly finding that little sweet spot, but yes, it is possible to do that. Now, the Knipex shears, they're definitely full-time cable cutters. They have got a sort of a two-stage approach. You've got this first area up at the top, and you can use that to cut through softer material, the insulation. And once you've cut through that, you can drop down into this inner area here where you can get more force in, and with that you can cut through the inner cores. Now, the packaging that came with these, this little card here, it says they will cut through up to a 20mm diameter cable, or it also says 70 square millimetre cable. Now, I calculate that 70 square millimetres to be a 22.25mm diameter, that's just short of an inch, plus the insulating sheathing that'll be outside it. So you're talking about cutting through a cable that's 25mm, 1 inch in diameter or more. It would be quite a hefty cable. But it does say here that they are not intended for use with steel wire armoured or for solid core cables, just for stranded. So let's have a bit of test time. Well, both of these will cut through your standard twin and earth quite easily, and I've not had any problems with either. Away they go. Twin and earth, they eat it up. That's just on the standard settings for both. And both of them will deal with this 10mm cable. A bit harder there, but again, if I go for the inner position on these, that 10mm earth cross bond is eaten by both of them. That cuts them there without even having to go. If I get on the standard setting, a bit harder, but okay on the power setting. Now, when it comes to a bit of standard tail, this is 7-stranded meter tail. I do have to chomp away at the insulation, but once I've done that, put it to the inner setting. I do need to apply a bit more force, but that deals it. And the Weeha one actually struggles a bit more now. If I was doing a lot of tails, I think I may end up buying myself something more appropriate. But it will chomp through there. When I go for the power setting, I can finish it off to cut through the cable. Now this is the 7-stranded cable that's slightly been around for a long time. I think both of them would cope a lot better with the softer 19-strand cable, but I haven't got a section of that to play around with. And the other thing I've used here is this Doncaster high tough, and that again has got, it's not armoured, but it's a tougher out, and I can cut through that quite easily with these cable shears, even when I'm just trying to nibble a bit off the end, which is a bit more difficult. The Weeha, again, it'll struggle with that, so I won't even bother. Now, I wouldn't like to use either for cables much bigger than these. So how Knipex can claim that these could be used by larger cables, well, I suppose if you look at the jaws, they do open an awful long way. If you were doing that all day long, you'd probably develop quite strong wrist muscles if you were using it for long periods of time. But it does eat through all the sort of standard cables you like to come out and find in a domestic situation. Price-wise, the Knipex is got a recommended price of around £54 to £60. Weeha 37 to 44, and I'm sure for both of them you can shop around and find might be available a little cheaper than that. So the Weeha's slightly cheaper, but it's not intended for the big chunky cable cutting task. Which is the best one? Well, if you're cutting cables all day, and if I was, the Knipex, it's purpose designed for that. It's got a very tight shear, which you might be able to see there, and it just chomps through the cable, even if you have to do it in 2 stages. But if you're using the tool for multiple tasks throughout the day, cutting a bit of cable, doing some other work, then the side cutters, the diagonal cutters of the Weeha is a bit more useful. You can nibble away at a few things where with this it might be more difficult. Although I have to say, if I was doing a lot of side cutting, the 8-inch 200mm length of these side cutters is a bit bulky, and if I was doing a lot of work, I'd prefer a 1/6 or even 180mm side cutter. But both of these cope with the cable, and this tool that Harry asked me to review in the first place definitely deals with anything I've been able to throw at it, even if I had to take a couple of goes to cut through the cable. That's all, folks.